We live in a science fictional future full of wondrous, interesting technologies like AI and the blockchain and virtual reality. There are a lot of different trends and excitements that are going on right now. But today we're going to be focusing in on one of those technologies, on particularly the blockchain, and very specifically about decentralized autonomous organizations. I'll get it out yet. Kalisa, let's roll the opening and we'll get right away, get started. I can't talk today. Talk to you there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be. You've tuned into Talk About Your Community, the show that's all about community builders and people who have a variety of different perspectives and experiences with building communities online, offline, and as hybrid kinds of spaces. And today's no exception. My intro was one for the blooper reels. I'm really excited about my guest, though, who's coming to us from Israel today. Itamar Dvir is the host of the Virtuous Society podcast. I can still not talk today. The Virtuous Society podcast, as well as the head of community for Game 7, which is a blockchain gaming industry organization working with creating a Web3 gaming ecosystem. We're going to learn what that's all about today. But before we get into all of that, just wanted to welcome everybody who may happen to be a newcomer to the show. As I said at the opening, quite badly, we bring in a variety of very interesting speakers who intersect with or have perspectives on community in a lot of different ways. Technologically, societally, ethically, and really we're just trying to bring some of the best thoughts and thought leaders to the table here for you every other Friday at 10 a.m. U.S. Central Time. So we do have another guest that is scheduled to come up in 2 weeks. My friend and colleague, Rachel Petzold, who is the product whisperer. Rachel is a chief product officer, has come from some amazing organizations like Nike and Starbucks and Amazon. And she is a collaborator with me on a startup that I'm working on right now, talent-led. And she's going to be coming on talking about automation or innovation and when an idea becomes a product, and I think its impact on communities and how communities can support innovation processes is going to be the topic of conversation. So mark your calendars. That's going to be April the 4th, 10 a.m. U.S. Central Time. Hope you can join us for that. It's going to be up on the Clocktower Advisors company page here rather soon. And then it'll also, of course, be tunable via our YouTube channel at Clocktower Advisors as well. But let's put that aside for the moment and bring aboard my guest here for the day, Itamar Dvir. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Clocktower Advisors. Talk about your community. Great to see you, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Itamar, I was excited to have you on the show because I think that blockchain has sort of faded from the media view, in as much as AI has been sucking up all the oxygen in the room of late. And so I wanted to have you on the show because you're doing some innovative things in the gaming industry with Web3 and particularly with DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. And we're going to dig into what that means, I hope, in today's conversation. But I think maybe to get started, can you just give people a little bit of background, a short bio of yourself and how you got into this particular space?
For sure. So I'm Itamar, I'm 29. I'm currently serving as the head of community for Game 7. I'll start with how I actually started and got into community building first and foremost before I'll jump into the Web3 stuff and the Web3 shenanigans.
Wonderful.
So I started in marketing and ran my own small agency out of college, juggling like bartending, waiting tables, pretty much anything I can to kind of make ends meet as a college student. And then lockdown hit, and I had to pivot and had to kind of explore the online space a little bit more. I kind of managed to weasel my way a little bit into an internship with the now late Jason Barzilai, may rest in peace. He was one of the Packard Bell founders. For the younger audience, that probably doesn't mean a lot, but for the people that know about Packard Bell, they were pretty big at the time and actually compete with Apple, with Microsoft for just computer hardware. And I did it for like 6 months, and I would say he really was the one that sparked my entrepreneurial juices and tendencies a bit more. And that's really when I kind of stumbled into community management and community building by somewhat of a mistake. So a friend of mine and myself had some free time, and we wanted to just launch an FPL podcast. So FPL, for those of you who don't know the acronym, is Fantasy Premier League. So fantasy sports, or fantasy soccer for the Americans. So we just did it as something fun to do with like a really shitty condenser mic that was probably 8 years old at the time, pretty dusty laptop as well. We would meet like every week, record an episode, and for some reason it started to really like pick up. And the first season, I think we had like 30, 70-ish listeners. And then in the second season, we had like 2,000, which was...
Wow, that's amazing.
That was pretty nuts. And we ran a Facebook page at the time because that was all I knew, and we wanted to give people like a place to speak to each other because we figured it makes sense. But it grew bigger, and like a Facebook page didn't made sense, so we started a WhatsApp group because that's kind of the basic form of communicating, at least in Israel. That's the most popular one. So we started a WhatsApp group. In terms of members, it wasn't that large, like it was like 300 members, but in terms of engagement, it was pretty nuts. We pretty much averaged between 7 to 15K messages every week, which got us thinking, okay, maybe there is something here. And slowly and surely, we started to recruit just community members to help us with stuff related to the show and related to running the community. So we had one guy running the Facebook page, another guy that ran the Twitter account. We had a few people coming on as like guest hosts and filling in when we couldn't. Eventually started a Patreon to help support everything, and kind of winged it completely. Like we had no really idea what we're doing. We didn't consider ourselves like managing a community. We were just doing stuff that made sense to us on the fly. So it grew pretty big. It's still running till this day. Yeah. I'm no longer there. He's no longer there. It's just its own thing. So that really shaped, I would say, my perspective about community ever since, because for me, it's just like it's an organism, and it's something that you might start, and you might be the one that spark the community from scratch, but eventually just it becomes its own thing, and that's it. So without really realizing it, we've built something pretty special, and that was, I would say, my first step in getting to community management, which for me made like a very clear path to Web3, because community-based marketing is pretty much the leading strategy in Web3. So it just pulled me in very quickly, and I would say that probably in 2020, I really in 2020 it became pretty much my full-time job.
That's amazing. I have often felt so you and I shared a beginning in community in the gaming space. So like my first experiences with online communities were with online multiplayer role-playing games. And
which one?
You probably wouldn't recognize it. It was a company called Skotos Tech.
Okay.
That it was kind of retro, because at the time when it came out, I mean, this was like early 2000s. It was multiplayer chat. It was like an extension of the old MUDs or mushes that were out, but it was proximity based and consent based, and it was a unique engine that was created that emphasized role playing over necessarily even gameplay systems. The gameplay systems came into play later, where you had dueling systems and magic systems and stuff like that. But I mean, I think the orientation that you get from managing or working in gaming online communities is you have a built-in audience of people who are deeply passionate about whatever it is, and like you said, like when it becomes when it percolates into an active community, like it's its own organism, and sort of getting it on its path is very rewarding to get to that experience. So what brought you from that early world of fantasy sports and community management into Game 7 and the blockchain Web3 kind of work?
Yeah. So in 2019, I believe it was the first time that I kind of like dove deeper into Ethereum, Bitcoin, trying to understand what it is. And it's funny because in trying to understand what it is, which is something that I think a lot of people experience, you have a lot of questions about the current system that we're dealing with, in terms of the economic system that we're currently engaging with, and how sustainable is it. And that was the thing that really sparked me diving really deep into the rabbit hole of what blockchain is and what it could be, what it is now and what it could be in the future. And when I say now, I mean 2019. Obviously, a lot has changed by then, not necessarily where I thought we will be, but it's interesting. Every cycle is very interesting. So I threw some money in, just like everyone else. Like you buy some, you get more close to the thing. And then came NFTs. And that was the first thing, the first time for me that I actually saw an application of blockchain in a way that I understood, and in a way that I think and still feel was valuable.
So just to interrupt really briefly, for people that are coming in and maybe not recognizing what some of these terms are, very briefly, blockchain, maybe you have an easy explanation for it, for at least shorthand for someone. They can always Google it and learn a little bit more on their own.
Yes.
But essentially, what is it that makes blockchain? And then NFTs, you mentioned, that's non-fungible tokens, and there was sort of a craze about them around 2019,
Indeed.
2020. Maybe we could kind of speak to that a little bit, but just briefly, blockchain. Do you want to speak to that?
Thank you for catching me there. Thank you.
No worries,
jargon, we do need to explain it. So blockchain, the best way and the easiest way to think about it is a ledger. Just like when you're making any transaction, say you transferred $100 into my account, your bank has a ledger, the transaction is registered somewhere. Blockchain allows that to be available on scale for everyone to see. That's I would say, the most basic definition of what blockchain is, and it doesn't sound that innovative, but it unlocks a lot of different things. So that's pretty much the technology at very simple terms.
And so, like, the idea that the distributed ledger, what I've always kind of inferred from that is that it's better security, and
indeed,
and that also allows for things like an NFT, which is a unique resource that could basically, I could own a non-fungible token as something that could be it could be as simple as like a community badge, or it could be like an original piece of artwork by a famous person, or it could be, I don't know, an architectural plan for something. Like it's really just something that is identified on the blockchain as some unique item that only you have the rights to use. There's like a legal right tied up with the use of that.
Indeed, it's pretty much tokenized. So it's tokenized its own token, its own owner in the form of a wallet address. And the best way to think about it is, if you're into sports cards, or some from the listeners or viewers, I'm on a stream now. I need to adjust my terms. So if you're into sports cards or arts or any pretty much alternative investment type things, everything, not everything, but let's say the best ones come with some sort of validation. So in sport cards, it will be maybe PSA or BGC, I believe is another one, that will rank your card and authenticate it. And you can think of blockchain as doing something very similar. So pretty much giving you the ownership of this is his. Say you have like an original painting of Da Vinci, for example. If you don't have the certificate that verifies that it is indeed Leonardo da Vinci and it's yours, it's very difficult to convince people that it actually, you can't really sell it on, let's say. People won't believe you. So that's a good way to think about NFTs, and they have a very strong use case in gaming. And the best use case that I've seen, maybe till this day really, is the use of NFTs for fantasy sports. So I got introduced to a platform that is called Soarer, which is pretty much like fantasy sports in NFTs form. So pretty much they're utilizing and leveraging blockchain technology in order to facilitate their platform. And for me, everything clicked right there. So it wasn't like the PFP craze, like people sharing monkey PFPs and all that craze. I was involved there more so as a marketing consultant for some projects, but I never really bought into it, because as a community guy, as a person that ran his community at the time, pretty much simultaneously to that whole craze going on, it was very clear that you don't really have a community here. You have a lot of people cheering other people on while the price is going up. And when the price is going down, everyone are turning on each other on the team. And it's not like, so it's pretty much, it's an audience of people really cheering and really happy and really excited about their investments or speculative trades going up in price, but there's nothing really there other than that connects them for most of.
What's that shared sense of belonging other than like, hey, my investment is going up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there is no belonging there,
but
right?
It's not enough. It's pretty strong in terms of the emotional connection, but it's not. You can't build a community on top of it. So
right. So so thanks for some of the background around that. You know, and as I think about sort of innovative uses of NFTs, like I've heard, you know, about using them to provide special access to areas in a community, using them to be maybe pair with a physical world object, or as a pass, to get you into real world events or something like that. But yeah, so I think the one that most people are familiar with is, things like some of the funny JPEG drawings that were being sold online for like the monkeys and the penguins 100%. And right. Now, so and NFTs, just to kind of help solidify this for anybody else that's maybe trying to understand this or think about it. Those are non-fungible tokens. Fungible tokens would be things like cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin or Ethereum or things like that. So sorry to do the 101, but this is a world that
it's needed. It makes sense.
I'm sort of like around the edges of it, and I'm trying to confirm some of my understanding at the same time around it too. So, so talk to me a little bit about the work that you do with Game 7 and the Virtuous Society, your podcast, which is here on Spotify. Encourage people to jump in and check it out.
Please do.
Yeah,
please do. So I'll speak briefly to Virtuous Society. So Virtuous Society is a place for me to interview what I feel are experts in different fields. Could be community, could be marketing, could be gaming, could be Web3. We had a plethora of different people and learn from them as much as I can, and hopefully some of my listeners and viewers will learn that as well. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. Currently, the show is somewhat in a halt, but we will resume it soon. We're doing a lot, so we need to take a slight pause in terms of Game 7 and what we're building. So Game 7 is an organization that is trying to steer gaming for a better.
Oops.
No,
Sorry, I didn't realize when I changed scenes that it actually cut you off audio-wise.
Oh, no,
apologize.
No worries. So I'll go back. So we're at Game 7. We're rethinking the future of gaming, and in order to explain why, I'll share some of the problem and the current state of gaming. So we have gamers that spent sometimes years, and when I'm saying years, I don't mean they've been playing a game for 10 years. I mean 3 years in terms of in-game hours. So spent years inside a game, and they're investing time, they're investing money, they're contributing a lot to the game itself and get nothing back. We think that's pretty terrible. And we have studios at the moment and builders stuck in exploitative models because that's really the only way to survive anymore with gaming. So you either have a huge studio runway for like 5+ years that will allow you to actually build a AAA game that is a risk in itself if you don't have pretty much the IP for it. Like, yeah, sure, God of War can make another God of War and GTA could make another GTA. But to make a new game that will break through this market is borderline impossible anymore, just because it's really, really, really expensive. And it's a huge risk because you're not making money for like 5 years and then what's next? And the other side of it is the mobile free-to-play in-app purchases that we're seeing quite a lot of, which is pretty much the leading business model and kind of the only one that's left, because it's very difficult to stay afloat if you don't kind of integrate and use those design models, because you don't really have any other way to do it. And that's, from our perspective, we think that's broken. And we believe that ownership that is based on merit as an idea, that if you contribute to a game, whether you are a developer, an investor, just a supporter, a player, you should have some piece of it that makes sense. And we think blockchain really allows a new business model to arise. And we're seeing some experiments now, some more successful than others, nothing that really, I would say, broken through. But that's really what we're trying to get to just a better future for gaming.
So what you're describing is really that idea of a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. And that shared ownership model is managed via the blockchain.
Right. In different ways. So I'll unpack it a little bit. So DAOs is not like every single DAO is the same. So you can have a DAO that is simply just a Discord server and a token. And then there isn't really anything there. Real DAOs and real organizations that are using blockchain technology in order to decentralize and in order to share the ownership of the organization in a way that we think could be more beneficial in the future is simply just a new way to build. Not really necessarily completely new. We've seen some other experiments in the past. Some have worked, some didn't. But it's a way to build, it's a way to own, and it's a way to govern, which every company is doing in a moment. You're obviously the founder of one. You have a traditional structure of a company. I'm not sure if you have investors or not. If you do, they have a stake. Obviously, the team has a stake, and the customers are simply customers. we're trying to, or decentralized autonomous organization, trying to kind of reshape that structure completely. So instead of one company that decides, say, what game gets made. So say, well, let's take a gaming studio as an example, that decides what game gets made. You have players, developers, everyone that are involved vote on what is the next thing. It could be that they're voting only on the strategic, high level, very important stuff. It could be that they're only voting on the smaller, not so important stuff.
So wait a second. So I'm going to ask a question here. I'm setting you up, for the answer. But so like, if I'm an investor though, like, shouldn't I have a bigger vote than somebody who's just a player that's occasionally contributing to the game?
That's the question. So what do you value more? Do you value stake or do you value the reputation inside the community? So say you have an investor and they only really care about, obviously, their investment appreciating in value, which is completely fine. Like, they provided value with giving, say, the early backing that the project needed in order to get itself going. That's fine. Should they make decisions? I'm not sure. It depends. Because if their objective is my investments need to appreciate in price, that doesn't always the best decision for the organization in the long term. But then you need to think, okay, should people that have a very minimal stake in the organization make such big decisions? Should everyone have just one vote, similar to what we have with an elections today, or like traditional democracies? And then you're pretty much find yourself facing the questions that pretty much every nation is facing, which is, how do we decide whom decide on what's going on? Like, how do we govern the things that we're doing? And who should get the piece of the pie if we are successful? And who should own up if we're unsuccessful? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And some will be token-based. So say you have invested $100 into a decentralized autonomous organization that is valued in $500. You're now owning 20% of their tokens, meaning you have 20% of the vote, of the voting power. Obviously, some issues there, because what happens if someone gets 51%? Then it's a dictatorship, and then why should people even come and vote? The other is a reputation-based system. It's not the other, but we have quite a lot, but I would say those are the two. So a reputation-based system, meaning what you contribute, or based on your merits, based on what you've done for the project, that's how we would weigh how much voting power you got. That's also a bit problematic, because that means that some people that are more, say, on the customer side of things or on the user side of things, and are not really contributing to the thing, don't really have a voice if that's the case, because they, like, obviously core team members and leadership and people that are constantly contributing to the DAO will have more voting power. So what is the model that makes sense? And I think that we don't really have an answer. We're just exploring it as we go.
It's very interesting. I mean, it sounds to me like the DAO then enables you to build whatever kind of governance system,
yes,
the group agrees upon. Really. So it could be like a full and true democracy, or it could be more of a representational democracy, or one that's very weighted towards the investors or the founders, of the organization. But the DAO enables you to give structure and governance to the processes that you put in place. I guess I wonder, this is something, so I'll back up a little bit. This is something when one of the organizations that I'm heavily involved with is the Community Consultants Collective. And when we were originally talking about how to structure this, which was back, about 2 years ago, we were having conversations about it. The topic of DAOs came up. and we ultimately didn't do it because it was just too confusing to figure out even how to get started with it. We ended up doing a limited liability corporation in the US, and then created an operating agreement that was pretty open and transparent, because we wanted to have a transparent, pretty autonomous organization where we were giving voices to people. And as people would volunteer, they would be eligible for equity, which would be tokens in a DAO. Maybe we could still build something like that. I don't know, but I still would not even know where to begin in terms of like, are there platforms or applications that help you build your DAO, and like, how hard are they to use? Like, I have to admit, I would be starting from ground zero, trying to figure out, where to go with this.
I would say that there are tools. Given the fact that we've built our own, you can. We weren't that happy with what was there, with what was out there in the market. So we built our own, pretty much portal, very heavy leaning into gaming and quests, and something that will serve our audience, which is gamers. But obviously, since you are operating in Web3, you will attract speculators, you will attract traders, you will attract a plethora of different people that you didn't necessarily thought will be there. But that's kind of the Web3 component of everything. And you're sharing the portal now. So Loot Drop, for example, is a product that we have to pretty much partner up with either games or chains. So Mental is a chain, Boomland is a game, and Fableborn is a game that we had long-term campaigns with, so like 4, 5, 6 weeks long, for users to engage, complete quests, and get rewards. Most of the quests were centered around like in-game action, specifically in Boomland and Fableborn. With Mental, it was more about like engaging with games in their ecosystem. And once that campaign is over, we distribute all the rewards for participants based on their spot on the leaderboard. So kind of PvP, but not really. More also like PvP, PvE, so player versus environment. You have the claiming and stake pages. The credits is what we had for our TGE, so our token generation event. We just launched our token a month ago, pretty much to the day, very weirdly. I think it was actually just exactly 1 month ago. So you can claim, you can stake. That's a lot of DeFi, so decentralized finance type components. Ours is somewhat different and more gamified, as expected from a product that is trying to accelerate gaming adoption. But it's very complex. Like everything that we're doing, like pretty much jumping into the Game 7 portal as a Web 2 user that never engaged with Web 3 would be extremely confusing. So to go back to your note regarding kind of does the DAO make sense? I think most projects, especially if you are not a Web3 project, you don't need one. And the reason that you don't need one is because there is no playbook, and it's really, really risky to try and implement it in a way that won't work, because there are so many ways to fail, from people kind of taking your token and making it just a complete speculative asset, and you kind of fall to the hands of the market with people just trading your token because it is tradable, all the way to just people not engaging because the governance structure that you set, you are blinded to a few spots that made it either a dictatorship that you didn't mean to create, but you have created, or simply not interesting enough because you didn't give enough stake or too much stake to certain individuals. And it's very difficult to manage and balance when you don't have, I would say, like a few months or years under your belt in just the Web3 space as a whole, because that's the audience that you will attract. So
we're talking to Itamar Dvir, head of community for Game 7 and host of the Virtual Society podcast, the community guy. If you've got questions for Itamar, please drop them into the comments section, and we'll try to get those up on the screen here. We've got about 10-15 minutes left in the conversation here. Itamar, I wanted to come back to one of the things that we talked about in the first part of the conversation, sort of the rise of AI, sort of blotting out other technologies in the I don't know what you want to call it, in the gestalt, in the broader ecosystem of the tech space right now. Blockchain was sort of a darling for a little while. Everybody was talking about cryptocurrencies and NFTs, and then it almost seemed like there was some scandal in the space, and people were just sort of dismissively saying, "Well, no, it's all a scam. I don't want to do it." I'd love to hear sort of your take on the space and sort of the viability of Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, of blockchain. In 2025, like where are we going with all this?
So, I think the one thing that I want to start off with, and kind of I think is important to remember. We saw the first iteration of blockchain in 2009, so 15 years ago. Now, we saw the first iteration of AI in 1956, I believe. So it's like the technologies are in very, very, very different states, from my perspective. In terms of let's say the attention that blockchain technology gets, bad publicity, good publicity all at once, is because it is the Wild West, and it still is the Wild West. And that's kind of the nature, in a way, of the technology. Like there is a saying that technology leans left. I don't know if you're familiar, but that's like cryptography and blockchain is a very right-leaning technology, very much about safety and privacy and being allowed to do things that maybe people are taking advantage of, and we're seeing it quite a lot. And unfortunately, that's also part of the maturing stage of this technology, because we don't know how to regulate it yet. Mm-hmm. And I believe we will understand it and unpack it. It will just take years and years and years. So I'm not an OG by any means. Like, we have team members, John specifically, that's been in the space since 2013, I believe. John Allen, brilliant guy. So he saw everything. Like, it's pretty much like 4-year cycles, and you see the same thing kind of going again and again and again. So it's people getting excited, really excited about something they shouldn't necessarily be that excited about, say NFTs or meme coins for this cycle, and thinking this is going to be like the next big thing. And the truth is, it's somewhat of a rigged game of people that are trying to simply extract you out of your dollars. It is what it is. In the background, just like in 2020, it's still happening today in 2024 or 2025, people are building real implementations of this technology in order to improve either existing spaces like we are doing with gaming, or create new ones. I would say finance is a huge one for obvious reasons. Gaming is a pretty big one. Like, in terms of the money that was invested into Web3 gaming, we saw in and around like the 10 billion mark, which is pretty small, I would say, over the past 4 years. And we haven't seen a real breakthrough yet, but I suspect that we will in the next years. But it's just, we're super early. Like, and you constantly hear it in the context of the price. Like, you constantly hear it like, you're super early to Bitcoin, it's going to $1 million. I'm not sure if that's going to, like, I have no idea. Your speculation is as good as mine. In terms of the implementation of the technology, we are super early. Like, most of the things that were built on chain were very like stupid, idle games that picked off and kind of got people excited. Okay, maybe there is something else here. And we're now seeing more and more people building more serious stuff.
But that makes me think about sort of early days of social media technologies where people when Twitter came on the scene, people were posting what they had for lunch.
Yes.
It's a matter of like figuring out like you've got this new thing that technology can do. Let me play with it and see what it's capable of. And it feels like maybe that period of experimentation is still going on in a big way in the blockchain world.
For sure. That's my perspective. And it's different. Like there's the outside view and the inside view, I would say, of just Web3, depending like if you're working in the space, at least with legit companies, then you know that there's a lot of very bright people trying to solve very complex issues. And there's a reason why it takes time, because those issues are really, really, really complex. And from an outside view, I would say just like, okay, Bitcoin is hitting 120K and now it's back in 75K and everyone got robbed by someone. Say the president of Argentina as the latest as the latest person to get involved with the whole like meme coin craze. And it feels from an outside view like the Wild West, because some of it is, but when you walk in the space, you kind of understand that there's a lot of noise, that the people that are operating and trying to build something that is bigger than what we currently got are not too bothered about.
Yeah, that's great insight. And I want to note, like I started doing this piece in every one of the live streams where I've got sort of the community quote of the day, and the one that stood out to me that you said in that description was the technology leans left. I hadn't really heard that phrase before, and just very interesting to think about. Like, and I think it's such a salient quote for communities and community building right now when we're in a social media space where the technology has sort of leaned left towards Wild West, sorts of things, and less safety and we need more right-leaning technologies that are not politically right-leaning, but right-leaning in terms of safety and accountability and being a little more conservative with preserving resources. I love that. I think that's really great. So Itamar, we've got just a couple of minutes left here today. I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to promote or some suggestions for if someone wants to get involved with Web3 gaming. What's a starting point, for someone?
So if you're interested in DAOs, I think the best way to engage with a DAO is to contribute to one. That's like the blockchain, or at least Web3 in terms of its philosophy. It should be decentralized and it should be permissionless also. That's the two major components of blockchain. I wouldn't say Game 7 is completely permissionless. Some components of it are. So if you join the Game 7 community at the moment, we're now just under 85,000 people. Pretty much like on Discord, on the portal, we have, I think, 250K. Pretty much, I won't go into like the wallets versus users debate, but 1 million users connected, 1 million wallets connected. How many users? That's up for debate, because there is a great incentive to bot systems like ours. So we have blocked quite a lot. In terms of how you join and get involved. So when you join Discord or just read our manifesto, you would have the opportunity to engage in pretty much a feature that is called skill trees. And it's not a technical feature, it's a community feature. So we kind of try to gamify contributions to a DAO. So when you join a DAO, you have the opportunity to contribute and get resources in some way, or maybe get educated or whatever. We try to gamify it. So have like levels and whatever. So you join, you take a short quiz, which levels you up to level 1. Then you gain access to the Guardians chat, which is pretty much let's say the true fans of Game 7. And then you can kind of prove yourself for like 2 weeks. like be friendly, be supportive, help other people, get other guardians to pretty much vet you and be like, okay, this guy is cool. And then when you level up to level 4, you get access to the Guardians course, which is something pretty much an initiative that we have been running because we have quite a few people that are junior, I would say, and want their first step into the industry and want to get involved in community work in some way. So we provide that course, and then they kind of compete on positions that we have available and objectives that or bounties that they can take. So for over the past year, we've given out over $100,000 in bounties for community members.
Wow.
That contributed in some way, creating content, managing the community, and helping with the support system, because we get a ton of tickets. So we have like with a platform like ours, a lot can go wrong. So managing 6,000 tickets is something you can't really do without some support. So they have opportunities to contribute there, and it's just a gamified, somewhat structured way and gamified way to contribute. Just engage with that, and you'll probably understand DAOs better than 99.9% of the people out there. So
that sounds amazing, man. Itamar, if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's a great way to reach you?
I think for your audience, LinkedIn probably makes the most sense. I usually plug my Twitter, not really plug. I'm not active anywhere, I'll be honest. Like, I'm not active on LinkedIn. I'm not active on Twitter. I don't really enjoy scrolling social media, so I'm less active there. But the best way to reach out to me is LinkedIn, that's for sure, because I check it every few days for like messages, so I might be slow to respond.
Got it. Well, it's been actually very edifying to hear from you about the great work that you're doing, in this space. It's definitely innovative. I know we talked about Wild West, but you're a lawman in the Wild West, man. I admire what you're doing, and I think that it's really incredible what this technology has potential for. Love to keep thinking about some of the potential futures for where this is all going to be going.
I'm excited for it. It is messy at the moment, although I thrive in chaos. I've always said that, and you need to enjoy the chaotic nature of the space if you want to make it your full-time job. That's for sure. But there's, like, once you have an inside view, there are so many brilliant and very good people trying to utilize this technology in order to build better things. So,
Itamar Dvir, thank you for being on the show, and for those of you who've stuck with us through the stream here, thank you for joining us. We'd still love to hear your questions, even if you're catching this on replay. Drop them into the conversation on LinkedIn or YouTube. Track both of those. I try to answer everybody that posts something there. And in the meantime, tune in another 2 weeks as I greet my guest, Rachel Petzold, the product whisperer. She is an amazing human, and I'm looking forward to having that conversation with her and having her on the show. Also, in the meantime, please take some time away from your screen over the weekend. Be good to yourself, relax, be with family, be with friends, eat an ice cream cone, do whatever it takes to unplug and rejuvenate yourself so that you can face the new week with energy and excitement. We will be back in 2 weeks. In the meantime, keep building great communities. Kalisa, roll the credits.